Thank you so much for that introduction, and thanks to all the participants online. Once again, I want to apologize for the delays in joining you guys. Had issue related to computer and internet, but I'm happy to be here and get this started. Today, I'll be talking to you about a work that is still in progress, it's ongoing. It's not finalized yet, so there is a lot more data to collect. But I just want to also share that this is not going to be the traditional core research project where I try to maybe show you statistical analysis and other things. But this is kind of to spark a discussion in conservation that we all can be part of and see how traditional or local communities in rural areas also support conservation initiative, knowing it and sometimes they not knowing it. So this could spark an opportunity to engage these communities to support conservation, as well as to kind of redirect our understanding about conservation as well. So to get started, I will first acknowledge some of the key supporters of this project. So the World Parrots Trust, we have a small grant, the University of Liberia, the Liberia Chimpanzee Rescue and Protection Project that's also interested in this initiative. I want to acknowledge them. I also want to acknowledge the communities that we've been working in. Specifically, I want to say thank you to my field assistant and student, Andrew Goe, who is also technically part of this presentation today. Andrew has been very instrumental in gathering data and as well as exploring conservation and bird research in Liberia. So just to kind of give a little overview, traditional knowledge or beliefs in conservation has been documented in different parts of the world. And there are a lot of research that looks at traditional beliefs in conservation, looking at it from different animals or different species perspective, and sometimes looking at it from the plant side of things. So there are a lot of studies published in Asia, in South America, and even in Africa, looking at traditional beliefs in conservation. Sometimes these efforts can actually can be very important, and people can tap on them to kind of understand how that can evolve or improve conservation initiatives. But on the other hand, some conservation projects kind of overlook these beliefs and only go for the ones that will be more, or kind of bring in science and only concerned about science in kind of answering questions in conservation or promoting conservation initiatives. So for this project, although this has happened in many other parts of Africa, in Liberia, not much studies have documented the role of traditional beliefs in conservation initiatives. Of course, there are some stories about taboos and other things that kind of support conservation initiative, but not much studies have actually documented this for birds or other species to know how they can be a tool for conservation in countries like Liberia, with one of the largest remaining forests in West Africa. So for this study, the goal was to kind of explore the role of traditional beliefs in the conservation of the Timneh Parrot. So we know that this is a bird of interest because, of course, the parrots have been the gray parrots, as they were called before collectively, were two species of great interest in or two species of great interest in conservation in the world, not only Liberia, because of course, as we know, these species um, have been highly involved in the pet trade across the world. So there are a lot of efforts by illegal traders of wildlife in taking these species from their original habitats and selling them for trade. So there's a lot of research published on both species in Africa. For example, the great parrots and the African great parrot. There's a study in Algeria that found how these species were traded for. And of course, originally these species don't occur in places like Algeria, but they come from West Africa, Central Africa, these different countries. So there is a lot of threats to the conservation of this species. And one of the key threats to these species populations across the region is the trade for pets. So anywhere where these species are concentrated would be of high interest, because there are a lot of things that could happen or that could go wrong. People would target those kind of areas for trapping and other things. So there have been studies also that have been carried out in West Africa to kind of understand, or using traditional knowledge to support or understand the status of Timneh parrots, to be specific. And in Guinea-Bissau, for example, this study was carried out by Rowan Mountain and other people looking at using traditional knowledge to be able to support or carry out field surveys to understand the population status and threats impacting parrots in that area. And again, to restate this, in Liberia, this has not been the issue. Most of the studies have been focused on field surveys in forest regions, but little has been applied to traditional knowledge about parrots. So for this study, just to give a little background about how this study came about, it was sometime in the early 2002 or late 2001. My student Andrew and I planned to do some field survey in remote areas that are that are not well known for birds. So this area shown in the map was one of the area that was earmarked, because Andrew originally originated not far from this place. So he decided, well, while I'll be home, I can do some surveys. So in January of 2022, he visited this area and did some surveys. So during that visit, that's when he came across this village with a very significant population of parrots, and they had some traditional beliefs associated with this conservation, with the conservation of these species. So since that visit in January, we have had 3 additional visits to this location to be able to understand the population of the species, the factors influencing what is kind of promoting the conservation of this population in that village as a result of the villagers' own involvement. So to do this, just to provide further information about this village, this is a village that is located in central, south central Liberia. The village was established in the 1960s, 80s, or 70s. There is no clear date yet. That's because some of the people there don't really have clear date, specific date the village was established, but it's believed, given the different stories that we have gathered, the village was established in the 1960s and early 1970s. So the current population of the village is over 1,000 people, and that is in part due to increasing activities, agricultural activities, logging activities around there. So it's a forested region. So there's a lot of logging activities. And of course, mining activities as well. That is attracting a lot of artisanal miners and small scale loggers, as well as real logging companies. So this village is a crucial point for all of these different gatherings. And you can see in these pictures, this is what the village looks like. The picture on the right above is the is kind of an alien view of the village, and then the picture below that is a close zoom out view of the village, or what you'll see from a distance at a close look. So to carry out the study, we visited the village over three different times, excluding the first time the village was discovered to be key. And during this visit, we survey parrots. There's some nocturnal survey of parrots using torchlights, as you can see in this picture. So we also did interviews with communities, the community dwellers of that village, and some other neighboring villages around there, to understand how this parrot has been protected over the last time. So in total, we had like 4 different visits to the village since 2022, and I'll be showing you some of the things that we discovered during that period. So so this is what we found. So for the first time we visited the village, we just saw that the village, of course, had parrots, but we didn't know exactly the population or the total counts of parrots. So we were interested in going back to see what exactly would be the population of these species. So to be able to do that, we went back in the at the end of the dry season, somewhere, well, not really the end, but in May. We went back in March to count the birds that we can find in that village. So after the count, we were able to document over 500 birds. The first time we went there in March, which is the dry season in Liberia. And then we wanted to understand, okay, how would this change over the dry season and the rainy season? So during the peak of the rainy season in July, we went back there, and then we were able to count over 700 birds. And the picture here below shows those birds roosting in the middle of the town. And interestingly, the bird only prefer palm trees and coconut trees, but in the very, very middle, in the center of the town. And then in December of last year, we decided to go back to kind of have a full year-round population count abundance of these species within that area. So in December, when we went back, interestingly, after counting, we were able to count about 500 plus species again. So that was alarming, having counted over 700 birds during the rainy season. We were concerned to know why has the population dropped. And in our interview with community members, nobody could actually say, they know the birds come every evening, every morning. That has been a routine, and they know very well when the birds are there and when the birds are gone. But nobody is counting to know, okay, what is the total number of the birds in this place, or how many birds really come to roost every evening and leave from here every morning. So when we saw this change in population, in abundance, that was concerning, and we were curious to know whether anything was happening around the community. So then we asked the community members, well, if you don't know what's happening to the birds, then we try to provide information about, well, the last time we were here, we counted this number, but now we noticed there's a decline in the number. So do you know of any other reason why you think Are there breeding populations of the bird that 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 you know about, or do you know where they are nesting and other things that you could let us know about? So that could explain why the birds are small in population or they're huge. And so after that conversation, interestingly, some of the villagers were able to point out that, yes, oh, we know where some of the birds are nesting, so we can take you there, because they were also concerned about their birds, right? They see them as their birds. So they want, I've been explained to them that, well, these birds could be impacted by not being in this community. So if you know of anything about where they are going or what they are doing, then we can be able to help to provide some information about this. So we went out, some of them volunteered to take us out to see where they have seen breeding records. And we went to this farm in the picture on the right, on the left. And the first, when we got to the farm, the place where the guy said he saw the birds breeding, there was this dry tree you see in the farm here. We used binoculars, scanned through the tree, and interestingly, we couldn't find anything. We didn't see any birds through the cavity. We didn't see anything. So we just passed and we went. So it was disappointing because that was the only place somebody said, well, I know that the birds are breeding, are nesting here. So that was like, wow, so what's happening? And then we left that location. We went further just to explore and see whether we could find something interesting. And few minutes later, about quarter of an hour, 15 minutes later, we came back. And interestingly, we saw a parrot in an identical cavity of the tree, the hole that the guy had mentioned that he has seen the parrot sitting, nesting. So that was a very interesting finding, because that kind of helped us explain what we thought was the decline in population. Maybe there were some breeding pairs that were incubating their eggs or busy doing, so they were not returning to roost. So we were only able to find one nest at that point, but we didn't have enough time to go in all the villages or all around the different farms to see. But this was an interesting finding to note that possibly the birds are breeding at this time. That's why, or that could possibly explain the decline in the population in the latter part of the year, given that we just had a very high population or a high abundance the previous months. So we were also curious to know, why are these people helping to conserve this bird? And there are a lot of reasons they give, and prominent among those reasons, one of them, that they have coexisted with this species for a long time. And the birds have been in that village since the establishment of the village, and they have served as such, as kind of like a symbol of the community, where everybody knows that, well, these birds are part of us. Originally, the birds were not breeding in the middle of the town. They used to breed in trees around the town. That is, old trees, like the Cyba petendra or cotton tree in West Africa. Those of you who are familiar. It's a very huge tree that grows near villages. So when the town was first established in the 60s, 70s, there was this tree that the birds used to be in. But over time, the tree got so old and then fell at some point. So the birds did not go to any other trees, though there were a lot of old trees around the town, but they came in the middle of the town and were roosting in the palm trees in town and coconut trees. So another important thing that was explained to us was that the community has the strong traditional attachment to the birds, and that information was passed on from one generation to another. So I remember when I was there in December, we went out counting birds at night. And everybody that passed by saw with touchlight was so curious to know who was troubling the parrots, like who is troubling those parrots, who is out there. And then everybody in the town became concerned. People started raising alarm. And the next morning when we had a meeting with them, that was the first issue that was raised, that nobody goes after those parrots, or nobody is allowed to touch those parrots until you get permit from the community, or you are not even allowed to count them or do anything if you did not inform the entire town. And that was later clarified by the town chief that we had to do the counting the night before because we didn't have enough time to be there. But that was an interesting experience to know how concerned everybody was during that period. Another important finding was they have strong rules and strong traditional penalties if anybody was caught trying to hunt the parrots for any reasons. So absolutely there was no allowance of hunting. Nobody was allowed to hunt the parrots for any reasons. Another important finding was that the parrots served as alarm clock for the town. So early morning by 6 o'clock or 5:30, 6 in the morning, everybody knows the parrots are going to wake you up from bed. So that was a huge warning sign when you know you need to go somewhere. By the time you hear the parrots leaving in the morning, then you have to get ready. You got to get up. Also in the evening, when the parrots are coming home, they also they return by 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock. All the parrots are back. One of the most interesting things that I also found was the idea that the parrots serve as early warning signs for the community. So Liberia has had a very terrible past. During our civil war, there were a lot of fighting in different communities. In the rural areas, it's even worse because warring rebels will go from villages to villages, attacking people or trying to loot from those communities. And so this community was able to explain that the parrots were there or were always kind of serving as warning sign for danger. So on 2 occasions, they didn't know that warning, and that wasn't pay attention to. But subsequently, that has been very helpful for them. And they stated in the 1990, I mean, sometime in 1990, during the outbreak of the Civil War, the parrots left the town for a while, like for a few days. And that was overlooked by some people. And it didn't take long. A few days later, rebels entered the town, and then they started to harass them, and some people got killed, and then so forth. And later on, at some point during the war again, that incident also took place. So about 2 or 3 occasions, the parrots will leave the town whenever there is some sign of danger coming, and they see that as an early warning sign. So this village has very high regard for the parrots, and they try to provide high protection for those parrots in their village. So having had a conversation with the villagers, it was established that they didn't know the breeding grounds for these parrots. Of course, we were able to discover 1 or 2 sites, but there is still a lot more to discover eventually moving forward. There is also some concerns about what happens to the parrots when they go out of the village. They go to the different communities. They go to some of the places they go to feed. So what happened to them? So there could be threats associated with that when they are outside the town where they get refuge currently. And another important concern is the increase in logging and mining activities around the area. And those activities can attract different people from different backgrounds, including traders. Of course, I should point out that the villagers have highlighted that there have been some traders who have come to the town over time to collect or to buy parrots and stuff, and that was completely opposed to, and nobody has done it to the best of I mean, nobody has reported any issue of anybody trying to catch parrot within the town. I want to say that this is an interesting story. It's a great conservation example that we should be excited about. And there are a lot of things that need to be done to be able to understand a lot of other dynamics involved in this. Understanding the breeding sites, a small assessment needs to be carried out. We also need to understand what's happening in neighboring villages and other parts of the country to understand that. So the next steps for this project is to we are still engaging the communities, but also some neighboring community to understand more about what's happening to the species outside this village and other parts of the country, and what are other potential stories associated with the conservation of parrots or birds based on traditional beliefs. So thank you so much for listening, and I apologize for the internet issues.
No problem, no problem. These things happens. Okay. Thank you very much. Let me quickly pass this to Professor Higuel so that we finish the translation on time. The floor is yours, Professor.
Ok, merci bien. Comme je le disais, donc, la présentation d'aujourd'hui a été portée par Dr. Ben Freeman du Libéria, de l'Université de Libéria, qui a travaillé donc sur l'exploration des croyances traditionnelles par rapport à leur aide potentielle en matière de conservation du perroquet gris Timneh dans une ville rurale au Libéria. Il faut d'avance noter que Ben est docteur donc, en ornithologie. Il a fait la biologie de la conservation, un master de biologie de la conservation à Plori au Nigeria. Et donc, dans le cadre donc, de ses études, il travaille sur les oiseaux, particulièrement donc, sur le perroquet gris sur lesquels il veut faire des études pour voir comment est-ce que donc, les connaissances traditionnelles vont aider à la conservation des ressources naturelles, particulièrement en ce qui concerne les oiseaux. Il n'a pas travaillé seul, il a travaillé avec plusieurs organisations, y compris donc le World Parrot Trust à Plori et d'autres, et l'Université de Libéria et d'autres partenaires. En fait, il s'agit ici d'engager donc la communauté pour les questions de conservation. Il commence son introduction en précisant que de nombreux travaux ont été faits sur les croyances locales à travers le monde et précise que ceci n'est pas le cas pour ce qui concerne donc le Libéria. Et donc, pour pouvoir combler les lacunes en matière donc, de connaissances locales, il a décidé de travailler donc, sur le cas du perroquet Timneh dans une ville rurale du Libéria. Au niveau, donc, cette ville, bon, il précise également que c'est une petite ville de près de 1000 personnes, 1000 habitants, et dont l'activité principale est les travaux champêtres, les travaux d'exploitation forestière et les mines. En termes de méthode, Ben précise que les travaux ont porté sur l'inventaire nocturne des perroquets à la lampe, torche, l'interview des communautés et également l'engagement des communautés à vouloir donc conserver les perroquets gris. Il a travaillé dans les périodes janvier, mars et juillet et décembre 2022 et il a pu donc constater que seulement dans la zone, seul le milieu de la ville contenait donc des perroquets gris sur des palmiers et des cocotiers. Environ 500 à 750 individus ont été inventoriés au niveau donc de cette petite ville donc, du Libéria, où les perroquets ont choisi d'élire domicile seulement à l'intérieur, au milieu de la ville, au milieu de cette ville. Il s'est donc posé un certain nombre de questions sur le lieu où ces perroquets nichaient et quel était donc l'intérêt des communautés à conserver ces espèces. En termes de résultats, il a donc passé en revue donc, les résultats obtenus avec les communautés qui, pour eux, les perroquets gris sont des espèces qui ont toujours coexisté avec les communautés depuis l'établissement de la ville. Les perroquets, ils ont un attachement traditionnel aux perroquets qui se propage de génération en génération. Ils ont également noté que les perroquets étaient des espèces qui servent donc d'alarme aux communautés lorsque il y avait donc des troubles comme ce qui s'est passé dans leur pays et qu'il y avait des dangers. Les perroquets donnaient l'alarme lorsqu'il y avait des assaillants qui venaient dans leur village. Il note également que pour aucune raison, les communautés ne chassaient les perroquets. Au niveau donc des potentielles menaces sur la population de perroquets, il note que lorsque les perroquets étaient en dehors donc de l'aire du village, ils pouvaient donc avoir des captures en dehors du village. Et le fait que l'exploitation forestière et l'exploitation minière devraient augmenter pourrait être un facteur de croissance donc, et attirer les vendeurs de perroquets dans leur région. En gros, voici donc on va dire le résumé on pourrait faire donc de la présentation de Ben sur les croyances locales des perroquets. Merci.